Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. In our final conversation with Dr. John Pratt, we'll ask some questions about the golden plates as well as the Reborn LDS Church and find out more about how things are run there. So it'll be a fun conversation. You won't want to miss it. Check it out. So, a couple questions. We'll try to wrap this up. I don't want to kill your voice. So the plates, they came, so Joseph Smith gave them to Moroni in New York. They went up to heaven, and then they just came back down to Brazil. Or is that how they got into Brazil?
Yeah. There's a mountain involved. The angel Moroni appears. The angel Raphael appears first at the university and tells him about at a certain time there's a mountain nearby where Mercy lived. And somehow he has the message to go up to the top of that mountain, and there he meets Moroni, and he takes these three witnesses who I think were there for most of these experiences. And he's told that he's been chosen to translate the plates, and and years go by. I mean, this is like 2010 or something, and he doesn't get the plates till 2018. Instead of 4 years of training like Joseph Smith, I believe it's about 8. And the witnesses went up several times too. And there was just a lot of training and learning.
Just angelic training.
Angelic training, meeting with Angel Moroni and things like that. And it's about 2018 where he finally gets the plates and the interpreters and does the translation. And I guess it's about a year because it comes out in 2019. Anyway, did I answer?
Okay, yeah, that was
question?
Good. And then, as far as the scientists are going to question. There's no evidence, DNA evidence, especially of Native Americans having Middle Eastern DNA and that sort of a thing. Where did the Book of Mormon take place? That's really what I'm trying to ask.
I don't have any official thing from this new church on that. So I won't comment on that because I know I have a paper on my website. I'll tell you what I think has been ignored in all this new Heartland stuff. I'm not a Heartland fan. This is just me personally speaking. But there's a map given in Alma chapter 22 where Mormon is going to talk about a bunch of wars and building fortifications. Moroni is going to build 7 cities that go through a mountainous strip from the east to the west. And everybody used to use this map to try to place it. And this new Heartland group says, they've tried that for 150 years and there's no telling. So let's just forget that map and let's just look at the archaeology and see where that is. And there's all this wonderful archaeology in North America. And what I'm thinking is, wait a minute, the Book of Mormon says that about it's chapter 63 of Alma, around 50 BC, that 5,000 families left and migrated north, most of them overland. A guy named Hagoth takes a boat to go up north to the North Country. They all went up north. And when you date all of the stuff the Heartland people are doing, it all dates to after usually about AD 100. So those are all Book of Mormon people. So I personally believe in the Mesoamerican model because that's where it fits the map. And the archaeologists say, well, we can't find much there. And I'm not into archaeology, and lack of evidence does not prove evidence of lack. Just because people... That's something you learn in science pretty quick, that just because you can't find proof of something doesn't mean it didn't happen. And anyway, but I'm not an expert on that.
Okay, so you lean towards Meso.
I'm a Meso man all the way. Well, I'm a Moroni, Alma Mormon who wrote in the Book of Alma the map. I think that's still accurate, and I don't think the changes that happened at the time of the changes of the time of Christ changed all the continent totally. And so I believe that map is still accurate, and the only place I know that fits is down in Mesoamerica.
Okay. Any thoughts on James Stang? Is he a false prophet, a true prophet?
I haven't studied him enough. I don't have any evidence that he's a true prophet. He was the one. See, the three different claims of Brigham Young was, anyway, he was the one that claimed to have a prophetic thing.
Yeah.
And I can't speak on that. I haven't read it.
You haven't studied him enough?
Oh, I wanted to say one thing.
Well, the reason why is because he's got his own set of plates and his own translation, so I'd be just curious about
Okay,
that.
I haven't studied that.
Those.
I haven't studied that. But I want to say one thing about Joseph Smith III, just to compare Revelation. Joseph Smith III, he goes in 1860. Oh, and he's in the Book of Mormon. That's another thing. In the Book of Mormon, where they read the ancient prophecy of Joseph of Egypt, and he says, one of my seed will be a great seer. And then he said, and there's somebody who'll be named for his father. And we all think, oh yeah, Joseph Smith Jr. is the great seer, named for Joseph Smith Sr. When you look in the sealed book and you listen to what Angel Moroni explains, the first seer is Joseph Smith Jr., the prophet. The second one with the same name is Joseph Smith III. He's actually prophesied in there. When I understood that, I thought, I'm going to go read his prophecies. I mean, let's see what he's got. One of the first prophecies is in 1865. The Civil War had just ended. They weren't sure if they should give blacks or slaves, former slaves, the priesthood. So he prays. There's this wonderful revelation, 1865, that said, the Lord says, I have men chosen in every race to lead their people. And yes, you'll find, it doesn't even mention blacks. I was wondering, when I wrote an article about this, and I thought, now, what's the word now? Colored people, blacks, see Negroes out. And I wasn't sure I had the right words.
African Americans.
African Americans, and I wanted to be politically correct, of course. And I thought, well, what did the Lord say? And he never said any of those. He said, I have people from all nations. And he said, I'm giving the priesthood to all people independent of their race. Anyway, that's in 1865. Now look at the LDS Church in comparison to that. You go through all the 60s as all the civil rights stuff. And the LDS Church is holding out. It was Brigham Young. Joseph Smith ordained Elijah Abel to be a 70. But Brigham Young had this deal of no priesthood for the blacks. And that stayed all the way up until 1978. So after the LDS Church was one of the last holdouts to treat the blacks differently. And then they never actually had a revelation. If you look carefully at what happened, the apostles all had a strong witness of the Holy Ghost that it was time to do this. President Kimball proposed that. He prayed and didn't get an answer. They basically said, if we don't get an answer negative, we're going to do this. You compare that in 1978 to if we had accepted Joseph Smith III. Talk about being on the forefront of equal rights. 1865 saying yes, a revelation from God saying, see, we could have been ahead of the pack instead of the last holdouts. I'm just saying we missed a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, the Bickertonites have had a black apostle since the 1910s, I believe. They never had a band. The Community of Christ never really had a band.
Well, yeah, the Community of Christ is from Joseph Smith.
What I've heard is Joseph Smith III didn't prohibit blacks, but he didn't really encourage them either.
I read that's kind of in the Revelation. It says, be sure they're ready. But that should be true of anybody. I mean, it shouldn't be an automatic thing that everybody's ordained an elder. They should all be ready. Right. Anyway, there's just all kinds of things, but be it known that, okay, one other thing on the church, and then we can maybe stop, but it's important to understand that the church that has been formed is not a new church. It claims...
Yeah, what's the name of the church?
The name of the church is Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. with no hyphen in latter day. Latter space, capital D.
Capital D.
The same as the Strangites church name, identical to it. It's an open source name. That's the name that was originally in the Doctrine and Covenants in section 115.
Are you Mormons?
But the claim is, if you ask me, what is the founding date of my church? The founding date is the 6th of April, 1830. This is the original church. So just like the Strangites, just like a lot of them, we're claiming to be the original church. Okay. But we've had angels come and restore things. And there is a date of, I'll tell you one cute thing. Since we've done Enoch calendar, let me just tie that together and then we can wind this up. In the sealed book, Moses says, he said, we did the Exodus on the 14th day of the first month, Passover. And he said that was done according to the moon. But he said there is a calendar that does not depend on the moon. And whenever the Lord starts his true church, it'll be on the 14th day. It can be on the 14th day of another calendar that doesn't use the moon, basically. Okay. Well, it turns out in 1830 that was true. Okay, but it turns out Angel Moroni said that there's an official date for this new church, and he said it should be April 6th in 2019. And that's before I'm involved. I haven't even read, I was just getting the book by then. April 6th in 2019 in Missouri. But when you look that up on the sacred calendars, guess what? That day is Passover, the 14th day of the first month, on the Enoch calendar. The same one that I've told you is about the first vision, and a lot of this stuff is being done on. Nobody would have known that. Nobody knows about the Enoch calendar.
But you.
Well, it's true, because everybody else thinks it starts on a Wednesday. The Qumran calendar is an attempt at it. But that's prophesied in the sealed book. But we're not saying that's not the official founding date, but it's a rebirth. Oh, so the short name we use, instead of having to say, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, found headquartered in Brazil. That is a mouthful. And we're doing the short name. It's the Reborn LDS Church. Because that's what it is.
Just Reborn LDS.
It's reborn. And it's like this Christian reborn thing. Because it turns out, if you look at in the Mayan calendar, the life cycle of man, first there's conception, and then there's quickening where you enter the womb, and then there's birth. The next step after that is what I call the birth of the natural man. It's the day of accountability. It's teenagers when they get rebellious. And that's the natural man that rebels against God. Then there's a day later on in life where you're supposed to repent, turn to God again, and be born again of the Spirit. You're born again. There's a day in everybody's life that's supposed to do that. The Church of God has a birth date. It also has a date when it became rebellious, which is the day it elected Brigham Young, turns out. And then there's a day when it stops being rebellious and goes back to God. That was, I believe, the 6th of April, 2019. And it was reborn at that time. So I'm saying so it's not just a cute name. It actually was reborn at that time. And it was prophesied in the sealed book by Moses, which nobody could have faked because they don't know that stuff. So anyway, so there you go. It's the Reborn LDS Church. The website is, there's one in Brazil, but I made my own because I have little histories. I like it better. And it's called Second Invitation because Joseph Smith was the first invitation to the restored gospel. And this is now the second invitation to the restored gospel. So secondinvitation.info. And there I've got a history, and there's lots of information there about this church.
All right.
All righty.
Cool. Does Denver Schnepper, have you talked to him about this church?
Oh, he did not like the book. Before it came out, he read about it and pronounced it bogus before he's read it, and now he has read it and he hasn't changed his mind.
He still thinks it's
So
bogus.
I'm a real rebel over there. The word on the street is, or over in Denver's place, is it's too bad about John. And why? Because they still want to follow a prophet. They're following him. He says, don't follow me. He just said, and he never said he prayed about the book. He said, it's a big deal for me to come into the presence of the Lord. And I'm not going to pray about trivial things. And he says, to me, this is obviously bogus. That was his word on his bogus. And so it's just his opinion. It boils down to, I liked the book and he didn't. But of course, everybody in his group is mysteriously with him. And so I go to the conferences, but and I told him, I said, I'm at the conference, I won't say anything that you think is heresy. But anyway, so I'm a believer, but not too many of his group. I think I know one other one who's in his group that accepts the sealed book.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right. Well, Dr. John Pratt, we've said everything there is to say.
It's a pleasure.
I probably do have more questions, but I don't want you to lose your voice, so.
No, I think we've done a good session here, but you've got an idea of the sealed book. We've mentioned some things where the LDS Church could be improved, why it's worth fixing. Having the priesthood's a big one. So I think we've covered it pretty well.
All right. Yeah, I have some Bible questions, but maybe we'll save those for another day.
Another day.
All righty.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been a great pleasure.
Thanks for being here on Gospel Tangents.
You betcha.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with the late Dr. John Pratt. I'm really sad he didn't get to see this, but it was really interesting to learn more about the Brazil plates as well as the first vision. And I thank John for sitting down with me. I wish he hadn't died of COVID. But anyway, miss you, John, and God bless you. You know, as we wind down to the year 2021, we've lost not just John, but a lot of major historians, such as Kurt Bench, Michael Quinn, Armand Moss, Shannon Flynn, and Kurt Bench. So in our final year-end wrap-up, we're going to cover and talk about these people that have mostly appeared on Gospel Tangents here. So I hope you look forward to that as we end the year. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thanks for supporting Gospel Tangents. If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please subscribe for just $5 a month at patreon.com/gospeltangents, and you can hear the entire interview before everybody else. If you'd like to watch the entire video for just $8 a month, you can either subscribe on YouTube, Patreon, or my website, gospeltangents.com. Just click the yellow subscribe button, and I'll add you to our Gospel Tangents Insiders group so that you can see entire videos. For those interested in a PDF transcript, you can subscribe at either Patreon or on my website. For just $10 a month, I'll send you a PDF as soon as it's complete. If you'd like a copy of the paperback as well as a PDF, just sign up for $20 a month at either Patreon or my website, gospeltangents.com. Of course, you can buy individual transcripts at amazon.com and just do a search for Gospel Tangents interview, and you can see all the things that we have there. Don't forget to support Gospel Tangents with an awesome t-shirt like one of these. You can subscribe at Apple Podcasts at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. Get our latest updates at facebook.com/gospeltangents. Also, you can get our Twitter updates at Gospel Tangents. Click here to subscribe, here for a transcript, and over here we've got more of our great videos. Thanks again.